Hello guys, we are on the new series of the Sokolov's best game, and even Sokolov was one of the best players, and he was the most outstanding talents to emerge in the 90s, and many of his victims were top elite players during that time like Anand, Adams, Topalov and Lozier. Uh, as a key member of the Bosnia and Herzegovina Olympiad team, he won a silver medal in Moscow 94 and was ranked 12th equal in the world in December 96. And Sokolov is a resident in Netherlands and tied for first with Jan Timman in 96 Dutch Championship. So I think it's good idea to analyze his games. And first game here is a Nimzo Indian game played by Sokolov as white and Brunner as black. This is a Rubinstein variation of the Nimzo Indian. This was played in Oakham 1988. So the game goes d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, knight, bishop b4, e3 castles, and bishop d3, d5, cd5, ed5, and knight e2, now c5. Black doesn't have to force an immediate decision in the center. Here rook e8 is more flexible and better, keeping open all options and also allowing the b4 bishop to retreat all the way back to f8. Now a3, cd4, ed4 and bishop to d6. If black captures on c3, then white recaptures with the pawn and will later generate an initiative on the king side. Now castle shot, knight c6, bishop c2, h6. In the near future, white will create direct threats on the king side and black will have to decide which pawn to move. The pawn formation like h7, g6 and f7 seem to be more appropriate, but due to black's impetuous decision on move 7, that is c5, uh, there are some practical arguments against it. That is, if at all rook to e8 and f3 and g6 here, now bishop to g5 and bishop e7. If black had played a rook e8 on the 7th move instead of c5, this bishop could have been on f8 and black would have been able to play bishop g7 with an equal game. Now then after bishop g7, king h1 with knight f4 to follow and an unpleasant position for black. So black played h6, then queen d3, then rook to e8. Here knight to e7 and knight to g3 also doesn't give black equality. So here after queen d3, rook e8, now f3, knight e7, g4, knight g6, king h1, bishop c7, bishop d2. The situation in the center is stable, so white can calmly develop his kingside attack. Still, care is needed in view of his draughty king. Although the direct rook f2 is playable, to here On the 16th move, instead of bishop d2, rook f2 is playable, since after bishop takes, now bishop takes g4, and bishop takes g4, f takes g4, and knight takes g4. There is the resource of rook takes f7. Now if at all queen d6, then rook f4, if this is taken, then there is this, and this. So it was a blunder to take on g4. So after bishop d2, queen d6, now rook f2, now bishop d7, rook g1. White is calmly bringing all of his pieces over to the king's side, getting ready for a direct assault. Due to the strategic errors Black has made in setting up his game, he doesn't have any counterplay with which to respond. Now queen to e6. If at all, knight to h7, and this could be met with bishop to f4. Knight takes f4 would be a blunder, because this goes into this, and this. So knight takes f4 cannot be made. So now after queen e6, now g5, hg5, bishop takes g5, bishop c6, now rook f g2, king f8, queen d2, clearing the diagonal for the bishop on c2. Now queen h3, and bishop takes g6, f takes g6, bishop takes uh, bishop takes, okay, bishop takes f6 and g takes f6. Now bishop takes g6 and f takes g6, and knight to f4, queen takes f3, queen takes g6 check, king f7, knight h4, queen h5, rook g7 check, king f8, rook takes c7, queen takes h4, now queen g2, queen h8. This move looks sad, but it is the only way for black to prevent immediate mate. Now rook g7, queen h5, and queen to g3, rook a d8, now queen f4, and now black can play f5, then rook 7 g5, then this, and then this. So black will lose here terribly. So Sokolov is convincingly won in style. This game is a very nicely illustrates one of White's strategy, attacking on the king side when the center is stable. Black's 7th move c5 was the mistake in the game. So I'll be meeting you in the next game guys. Thank you all.